Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Alfred, and I would like to review the new sitcom series called Cost. Now, this is something that is from Netflix, and as it is Netflix culture, it also has to be SJW inclusive, pro LGBTQ, and anti Christian. These are all key elements of Netflix movies. It's very interesting since that Netflix in itself is kind of like Walt Disney. They don't really produce or create movies themselves. They just approve. In the case of Disney, Disney approves the making of movies, basically the funding. You could look at Disney as an investor in the movie industry that also has a brand name to attach to the finished products, that has a lot of power and credibility as a product in that industry. Disney, the days when Disney itself was a studio and actually had talent, those days are over. Now it is just about financing. That is what Disney is about. And when you look at the key people in charge of Disney who are running things, they are just financiers. And that is also why the movies you see are more profit driven and they are going in the wrong direction. It is no longer about creativity. It's about what sells and about what am I going to be sure of, that will produce money from an investor's perspective, not from an artistic perspective. Back in the days when Walt Disney was alive, when you look at the animations that were produced, each one was different from the previous one. It was not a continuation when it comes to artistic presentation. When you look at Snow White, the cartoon and the way the direction it went is completely different from the direction that Cinderella went. And when you look at the direction that Cinderella went, it was totally different from the direction of all the other movies, when it comes to the pictorial presentation and what actually went into it. And as a matter of fact, in the early days, most of the movies that Walt Disney made him broke. It put him in jeopardy, and he went into creating merchandise out of the Mickey Mouse brand. And a lot of times, he would take funding from banks to pursue what he was creating, because like when he was creating Snow White, he was looking at it as a painting, a beautiful work of art that moves, so all those kinds of things. But now it is now about what am I sure is going to bring back more money for the investors. That is why you see things like what happened with the Disney Marvel series, movie superhero movies, that ended with Endgame. You see that kind of thing. It was just all about money. You can see Black Panther, all about money. You can see a lot of the moves that they are making, and that is why they are making a lot of remakes. Like I've said before, it is easier to get financing for a project when you meet a financer, or let's just say somebody comes to you and says, I make movies and we need you to help me to invest $10 million in my movie. Now, if someone comes to you like that, it is easier for that person to take money from you by saying the movie we are going to make is the sequel to Star Wars, than for you to hear about a fresh idea that has not been tried and tested before, and you are not sure of how the audience will react to it. But with a sequel that is already successful, we are sure of how the audience will react to it. That is why you can see a lot of sequels to successful movies, and you can see the push towards that, and you can also see a push towards remakes. If I tell you that we are going to remake King Kong, or we are going to remake, something that is classic like Godzilla, it sounds, wow, the previous ones are legendary. This one is most likely going to be legendary as well. So it is those kind of financial decisions that drives the direction that the studios take when it comes to Disney. But what I want to point out is that Netflix also, all it does is that it has a platform for people to show their movies, and also it pays people thanks to the value it has made out of that platform and the money it gets from shareholders and banks, and of course the revenue it's getting back from those who subscribe, which is not that much, and that is also why you can see in many cases Netflix does not make that much of a profit when you look at their balance sheets, but they provide a lot of money for creators, for independent companies. Even though at the end of the day, you will see when you watch the movie, like it is a Netflix movie, you see Netflix as one of the key things. When you look after that, you will see other studio names like a so and so production or a so and so movie, a so and so company, you see other names. Those are actually the people who did the groundwork, who actually made the film. But Netflix, has a lot of situations, just like Disney will provide the financing for the person who will make the film and also give approval and give input on the screenplay of we want this removed from the screenplay, we don't want this in the screenplay, or add this, and that leads us to something. Netflix is using that same power, but it is creating a brand of things that it requires in the screenplays. All screenplays now have to be inclusive and LGBTQ friendly and anti-Christian. You will see a lot of jabs at Christianity in movies and screenplays that is not themed about Christianity. Christianity is not something that should be associated with it, but they just put a random character that is one crazy Christian, and then they make him look like he represents all of Christianity. And you can see the same thing with the character Ned Flanders in The Simpsons. Those things are intentionally done. Those are things that you have to understand. Those things are intentionally done and intentionally put in there. But Netflix, using the power that it has, it is going to influence a lot of movies to have a lot of anti-Christian content, a lot of pro-feminist nonsense, like this movie Costs. It is unnecessary, especially in this time, for this great push of all these elements to be in all the movies. Anti-Christian, pro-feminism in a way that destroys the plot and doesn't make sense. Just like the Supergirl series and the Batwoman series, the pro-feminism does not make sense. If you want female-led characters, they have always been female-led characters, but it has to be realistic and done in sincerity and not done with the aim of trying to compete with men. Like if it was not a woman in this role, it will be a terrible movie or sitcom. When people try to write scripts in that direction, what they end up creating is garbage. And you can see that with the Supergirl series, with the Batgirl series, and now with this one. This is basically a female version of Otto, mixed with a lot of all these elements of pro-LGBT inclusivity and all that nonsense. That is what this sitcom series is about. The unnecessary and unrealistic pro-feminist angle is, of course, replacing King Otto with a female, and a female that is not even strong. I mean, why in the world, would you have a situation where, in a movie that you are trying to put in the medieval ages setting, in the dark ages setting, you are trying to make the warrior a female, the key warrior, surrounded by all these men. And it's funny, when it came to movies, when you look at the early movies that put a female action lead to champion and to be at the head of the movie, what they did was you could see the strength, you could see the muscles, you could see a lot of times the growth. And when you study certain traditions of screenplay writing, especially when it comes to the writing of a female action hero, there is the writer's journey, that talks about the female journey. And one of the things about it is that there is that losing of femininity. A woman has to lose her femininity for her to be a successful action hero that shines and rises above and beats up men. That is a necessity in the process, because she has to abandon her femininity, and basically become super macho. Otherwise, how can she be tough and be beating up men? And in the early days when action movies started, they tried to make it somewhat realistic. But keep in mind that a woman's bone structure is built to be softer and tender, and it is nothing compared to the strength of a man's bone structure and build. This is natural. But at least back in the day, the woman had some muscle. Now it is more about how she looks. You see, women who looks like skinny models beating up men that are 10 times their size. That goes against the law of physics. It is not possible for a woman who is skinny to punch a man that looks like Goliath. She punches him once and then he falls on the ground. How is that possible? It doesn't make sense, but that is now the direction that a lot of movies go to, and that is what this is. So all the action and all the fighting scenes go against the law of physics. And the concept of the sword choosing a woman itself, because this is Excalibur, the legendary sword of King Arthur, based on the myth of King Arthur and all of that, the stories of King Arthur, replacing it with a woman. It's just so crazy. How far will it go? And then when it comes to the anti-Christian angle, of course, about the Catholic Church and the Dark Ages. So they introduced that here, and of course, making, by vilifying the Catholic Church, even though, we Christians, Christianity is so large and there are so many different denominations, whether or not you classify yourself as a Catholic or with any denomination, they can use one person or one denomination to represent the whole and insult the whole. And that is what this is about. Imagine all the kids who are not raised to go to church, or perhaps their parents are atheists, and then they watch this, and this kind of thing is reaffirmed in all their movies. In all their movies, Christians are looked at as people who are old school, who believe in old, outdated things, people who are not smart, who believe in an imaginary figure in the sky, all those kinds of things. Those are the kind of things that are intentionally put in movies. And keep in mind that all of this is part of a larger scheme. All these things, all these little programmings, all this reshuffling of ideologies, taking away certain things that were traditional values, the killing of family values, like things like the pushing of LGBTQ. It does a lot for a lot of things. It changes so many other things. Like, you may look at the LGBTQ push, and you do not know that another angle of it is the deduction of population. That is also one big thing that will be and is a result of people being gay. When men are marrying men and women are marrying women, and all of that is being pushed, and society is being normalized in such a way that the powers that be are using companies to push forward that kind of behavior. When somebody is gay or LGBT or comes out, they say coming out of the closet, their opportunities increase, more doors open for them. And they are using industry and companies to do this. And it has become normalized. People cannot see that it's discrimination against those who are not gay. When you are promoting people because they are gay, when you are giving people movie roles, some people, they were not getting that many opportunities or movie roles. The day they come out and say they are homosexual, their career blows up. Look at Ellen. Where would Ellen be if she wasn't pro-LGBT? There's nothing about her. What was she before she came out and said that she was pro-LGBT? What was Ellen? She had a failed sitcom. Her talk show was struggling. But when she came out and said she was LGBT, she just went and zoomed to the top. because that is when the push was there and all those other things. And that is another thing about the LGBT community. They have a strong understanding of using their numbers to influence industries and companies. They make companies pro them, otherwise they won't patronize their products. Unfortunately, Christians don't do that. And I've said that if Christians don't start doing things of this nature to influence industry and companies and politics and policies, all that everybody else is doing will lead to the reduction and not just the reduction of the number of Christians, but the impossibility to live a Christian life. Like look at now in this COVID lockdown issue, they are telling churches to reopen under COVID-19 lockdown guidelines. And unfortunately, even a lot of these Christian organizations that oversee things, because it's a power structure, they have their own agenda. Like, for example, in Nigeria, the Christian Association of Nigeria, is giving pastors and churches a mandate to open under COVID-19 guidelines. That is a disgrace. People get healed in church. People come to church to get healed. Then, when you now have people in a church being afraid of a virus, where is Jesus there? What Jesus is there? What's healing? What does Jesus have to offer? It goes against the message. It goes against the truth. It says that everything that is happening from the pulpit is a fraud and is a lie. How can people who gather together to worship God be afraid of a virus and be social distancing and wearing masks? There are some churches that have happily done so and are posting pictures of how they are implemented it in their churches. Everybody comes, they wash his hand, they go through all kinds of machinery and all of that, and people in church wearing masks, and they are sitting them apart and all of that. Keep in mind that all of this is a part of social engineering. When you look at the different little pieces, you cannot see the big picture. You can just see this little thing and say, this pastor is trying to help and go according to the law. But keep in mind that laws are made by men. There are men who are lawmakers and law editors. The laws do not apply to them. There are a lot of people who say nobody is above the law. That is stupidity. How can you say nobody is above the law? What about the person that wrote the law? What about the person that has the authority to rewrite the law? Keep in mind that there are such positions. What do you think the legislative arm of government is? They write the law and they edit the law. The individuals in this position and these organizations and the different country clubs or organizations or groups of friendships that these people form and ensure that there is continuance of their own belief. Just like, in schools, they have fraternities. What makes you think that there are not different groups of friends in different positions? And they ensure that, to the best of their ability, their children and their interests continue. These are not things that are far-fetched. These are things that are realistic. After all, whoever you are listening to me now, you have a key group of friends, a key circle of friends. Even without joining a gang, everybody is in a gang. Everybody has their own gang of friends. There are specific people that are close friends to you. And within that group, whether you intentionally created it or you did not intentionally create it, your best friend is friends with the people who are closest to you. And you are closest to those people. And they are also close to one another. That in itself is a gang. Now imagine a situation where all of you have influence and power and share common beliefs. What is next? What else do you expect to happen next? So even without certain groups officially joining and saying we are about this, those groups already exist. It is in human nature for such groups to evolve. When you were in high school, there was a close group of friends that you had. You see, you did not intentionally create it. You did not go out and say, let me intentionally go out and create a close group of friends. You talk to everybody, but there were people that were always, majority of the time, they were around you, and they were also around themselves. You see, because likes attract. When it comes to human beings, people with the same interests, the same desires, and the same likes, they attract. Think about the days when homosexuality was punishable under the law. How did homosexuals find themselves? How were people still finding themselves? In the 50s, in the 40s, in the 30s, it was not something that anyone could publicly say that they are for. But how did these people find themselves? You see, even when you look at situations like Nazi Germany, the people that were hiding Jews, the Germans that were hiding Jews, how did the Jews find them, and how did all of that happen? There's something about people and human beings. You find people who like you, or who like the things that you like. And the people who like the things that you like are most likely going to like you. You don't need to communicate with people, as in say words, for you to understand certain things about them and them understand certain things about you. So those are things that you have to realize. And there is a bigger picture around all this. It is very unfortunate because when you look at this and where this is going, the big picture of what is being created, and people are now being normalized into it. Right now, people are rebelling against all the SJW-ness in the movies. But if there is no company or group of companies, because it has to take a lot of movies, to stand up and make proper movies and actually prevent people from being blinded, it will soon become normal. Because guess what? Even the movies that we do not think are SJW are SJW. In other words, let's say the movies in the 90s, you thought they were not for social engineering. Today we look at those movies and say, we prefer those movies to these movies that is all about pushing certain ideologies. Guess what? Those movies that were made in the 90s went completely against the beliefs and the way of life in the 60s. You see, and when you look at the 60s itself, the movies that were made in the 60s did not represent what was truly acceptable and normal in society. It's appealed to what people wanted to see. It appealed to what people wanted to watch. There is a difference between what people will want to experience, out of themselves. Like somebody may play a video game where in the video game they're a violent murderer, but that is not acceptable in society itself. And that person will never do any of those things that the person does in the video game in real life. But that person sees that as a way of escape, and it is kind of like a way of expressing and doing something that they will not do in real life. So a lot of times, especially in those 50s and 30s eras, that is what was the law to a lot of the movies that were made then. Because a lot of those movies, and keep in mind that the SJW-ness was less, the propaganda was less, but it was still there. However, those movies did not reflect the lives of those people in that era. So what I'm trying to say is that movies and entertainment has always been used as one of the ways of social engineering. They are all other things. So the question is, what is the big picture? There is no one earthly organization that has the big picture. I know there have been talks of the Illuminati and things like that, and the talks, there was a time people were talking about Illuminati, and people don't talk about that anymore. But the reality of the matter is that there are different earthly organizations with goals of world domination and acquiring more power. And if you are unaware of that, you are crazy. There are organizations everywhere, that obviously want more power. As a matter of fact, almost every organization is about power, because every organization wants to influence something or change something. So that is what it is about. It is about power. Every organization is about power. So for you to feel that there isn't organization that is about acquiring all the power. It's crazy of you. An organization that wants to ensure that people are committing abortion all around the world, and is saying that it's a human rights thing. They say that abortion is a human right. For that organization to have that belief and to carry out what they plan, that means they have to influence and change people's minds on that issue. They have to make people stop seeing abortion as murder. That is a very serious thing. When people think about world domination and organizations that are trying to control the world, how do you make a world that everybody knows, a lot of people know and see that abortion is murder? How do you make them change their minds? What processes are you going to go through? So you can see that drive for power. Even an organization that wants to do the reverse, it is also about power, because you want to change people who believe that abortion is okay. You want to make them believe that it is not okay. So you want to change what is already there. You want to get influence, and you want to also change laws. So every organization, when you look at it, it is all about power. They have goals that has to do with influencing or changing things. When somebody says they want to change the world, did you get any votes from the people that you are that are around you, or the people you say you want to change? From your own perspective, it is making the world a better place. But did you ask them, is that the direction that they want to go? You see? So that is something that you have to realize. All the people that are trying to change the world, they are also involved in acquiring power and on this same quest of what the idea of an Illuminati tries to bring forward, changing and controlling and influencing the world. Because that's something you have to understand, that also when you bring forward that change, you have to maintain it. So if you want people to start believing that abortion is okay, you also have to maintain it. So there has to be a power structure to ensure that nobody is allowed to propagate the message that abortion is wrong. So you can see that same concept of an Illuminati there. It is already in every organization. That concept of trying to influence and change things and, establish a situation of control and to, push down every other ideology and just put forward your own. Keep in mind that as a Christian, we bring forth the gospel, and that is the message that we are taking to dominate it and swallow up and encompass the whole world. Remember the situation in Egypt where Moses' rod turned into a snake. His rod that turned into a snake swallowed up all the other snakes of all the other magicians. That is how the gospel should be. We need to swallow up every other ideology and every other belief system and every other thing that is against the word of God. And that is the reality. So that is something you have to understand. But when it comes to the big picture of a lot of all these organizations that don't seem to be connected or don't realize they are connected, like the Black Lives Matter, and you see another organization like Planned Parenthood, all these organizations, all these satanic organizations. And yes, Black Lives Matter is a satanic organization. There is a difference between the sentence Black Lives Matter, and the organization Black Lives Matter. A lot of people say, why do people not want to say Black Lives Matter? Because Black Lives Matter is an organization and it is a movement. It is an organization that has beliefs and principles that go beyond just protecting black people. It's not even about protecting black people at all, because it ignores all the black people that are killed by blacks. It ignores all the black people who are currently slaves in sub-Saharan Africa and in Asia. So it is not even about protecting black people to any degree. But that being said, it has a lot of values. When you go to the website, it is pro-LGBT. It is pro-feminist, and the version of feminism that is anti-male. There is nothing about men on the website, about black men. It is transgender men that is on that Black Lives Matter website. How can you ignore men? How can the Black Lives Matter does not recognize men. It recognizes transgender men. And it puts it there, and people have been pointing it out that why did you put all these things, LGBT, this, why did you leave out men, straight black men? Why did you leave them out? Of course, white people are not among, and all of this is, you see, that is something you have to understand. It is part of something bigger. And look at the people that are sponsoring, the same people that are sponsoring Planned Parenthood, George Soros and co. And you can see how Antifa has used the Black Lives Matter to do a lot of things. A lot of all the bricks, like people were finding and posting online videos that at certain locations where people were going to protest, there were already bricks waiting for them in places where there was no construction around. So you can see how the Black Lives Matter in itself is for manipulation, and it is itself being manipulated by Antifa. Antifa is a different movement. They are not about black lives. They are about the total destruction and the rebuilding of everything in the world. It is an anarchist movement. It believes that everything is wrong and the whole system is terrible and it has to destroy the whole system. It is a socialist movement. They so-called believe in equality. In the sense of everybody must have the same amount of money in their bank account, that kind of nonsense, which is not realistic, especially when they are destroying people's property and stealing from people. But you can see the influence. You can see how they hijacked the Black Lives Matter, protests, and you can see the rioting aspects, and also all the black people who are doing all those robbing and rioting. You see, all these things, why can't the Black Lives Matter as a protest, why can't they be organized enough to know that, okay, this is it, this is this, and this is that? And when people are looting and robbing, it is clear that those people are not part of the Black Lives Matter protest. Let me put it this way. If a church, let us say that a church that has several branches all across America, decide to go on processions, is it possible for people to start looting and robbing, and it be done in a way that people will associate it with the procession? Even a gay pride parade is done in such a way that it is clear that these people are part of the parade. So if somebody is robbing and looting somewhere else, it is clear that those people are not part of it. The whole thing is organized. So can't the Black Lives Matter protests have been properly organized in such a way that there would have been no looting and robbing? But a lot of black businesses have now been destroyed, and in a lot of black neighborhoods, and a lot of those companies are not coming back. I believe the mayor of Chicago was begging, was it Walmart or Target, to come back, but how will it come back after all the looting and robbing? Insurance is real, money is real. There are people who are saying silly things like a human life cannot come back, but physical property can be replaced. That is not the mindset to take. Apart from the fact that human lives can come back, humans can be raised from the dead. Apart from that, you cannot take that approach as a justification for destroying people's property. Just because your own wasn't destroyed. So there is so much to see. But the person who has the full view of everything is Satan. Satan is seeing everything and he's controlling everything that he's controlling, and he knows what he's doing. He's the only one that has the big picture. And those who he wants to see to have a big enough picture that will be helpful for his plan, he will only let them see it if it's going to be helpful for his plan. But he knows what he's doing. So all these movements, it is just like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. There are organizations that could be helping you, but they are just interested in using you to destroy something else. When that something else is destroyed, they will turn on you. You will no longer be useful. They will cast you to the side. And that is the reality. This is something you need to understand. So these are the facts, of life. And this movie, and movies like this is very terrible. That being said, it is important that we as Christians, we move very fast. We make Christian movies, we make good movies, movies that represent God, are movies that tell the truth. It has to be by the Spirit. And with my company, the conglomerate Alfred and Friends, we have a subsidiary movie studio, and if you would like to work with us, you would like to either as an actor, as an investor, on any level, you would like to be part of making Christian movies. It doesn't matter what country you are in. Reach out to us first. We'll work something out. Because a lot of these companies are in the starting stages. A lot of the companies under the Alfred and Friends umbrella is in the starting stages. A lot of them have not even officially kicked off, and we are still planning a lot of things. But we have to move forward. There is no going back. There is no other choice, because it's a matter of the future of the world. It's a matter of the life and death of souls. It's a matter of the kingdom of God versus the kingdom of the devil. We need to ensure, as far as we have the victory, but we need to win souls. We need to get people into the kingdom of God so that they will be saved, because the way that Satan is going, the battle is to ensure that Satan's plan of making a lot of people end up in hell does not keep going further. Our goal is to ensure that people are saved, lives are saved. That is what it's about. And that is one reason why, we've taken away distractions like asking for money and donations. So what I do, and my entire ministry and everything, what I'm doing is structured in a way that there are businesses. We are using businesses and industry to preach the gospel, just like Satan uses business and industry to preach his message, to expand his message for his own big plan. An organization that is running off the engine of charity is not going to defeat the Apples and the Microsoft, because the Apples and the Microsoft and the Twitters and the Facebooks, they have their goals. They have their own ideologies that they want promoted. There are a lot of things you post on YouTube, it will be taken down. There are a lot of things you post on Twitter, you will get suspended for. President Trump has been suspended and is having problems with some of his posts. If President Trump is having that kind of problem, imagine what will happen. And it is being said, and it is something that everybody is saying that it probably is going to happen, that as soon as President Trump leaves office, his Twitter account will be cancelled or deleted or suspended or something. There's also the possibility of them locking him out of his accounts. In spite of the millions of followers and the popularity he has brought to that site, they just shut everything down. They could just shut it. Like Katie Hopkins, that had over 1 million followers, has recently been kicked off the platform. They don't care about the fact that she spent so much time building that. They don't care about whatever money you have spent advertising to build your profile to that level. They shut it down because of what she posted. So that is an engine that has so much money. Big industries and companies. Microsoft has its own goals, his own ideologies of what people should support and not support. And then imagine that kind of organization. Imagine those kinds of companies, with their own ideology that they are pushing for. They are the ones that are generating money. How then can their employees who are donating money to churches that Satan has already put a stumbling block of making people feel that all preachers are about money, all churches are about money, so they should not give? How can the churches then compete? It has to be industry versus industry. As a matter of fact, we must have the greatest industry, the biggest and the most mighty. Otherwise, we will not go anywhere. Because keep in mind that everything that we are doing will be left behind. Nobody is taking any business they have built or any money that they have to the, when they live here. Nobody is taking it. We are all living it here. So what matters is, what are you doing with what you have now? Are your riches advancing the kingdom? Are your riches advancing righteousness? Are your riches making the world a better place? That is what it's for. It is a tool. See money as a tool. See the companies as a tool. Don't look at it as the reward and as the treasure itself. That is not the treasure. The money is not the treasure. The treasure is the souls that the tool of money brings about. The treasure is the happiness, the joy, the improved lives that the instruments of money and the companies and the industries brings about. That is what it is about. So understanding that we've come to the end of this broadcast, so I would like you to reach out to us on alfredandfriends.com, so that we can work together. It doesn't matter what country that you are in. We plan on going into every single country. The gospel must be preached via industry. And every single means. We are not leaving any means behind. So that being said, reach out to us on alfredandfriends.com. I'll be looking forward to hearing from you. There's a contact form there. It doesn't matter on what level you are. You may only have, you may look at yourself and say, all I have is to offer is my talent or my gift, or I'm in the process of building my talent. Just reach out to us and let us work forward from there. So that is it for today. Thank you and God bless you.